Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the final episode of the 2025 OSAA High School Football Officials Training video, our Clips of the Week. We appreciate everyone's support throughout the year. We'll have some thank yous at the end of this video, but this will be our last regularly scheduled video for this season. We hope to come back during the off season with some additional training videos, but this will be it for this season. With all of that said, let's jump into our final clips of the week. Well, our first clip has a lot to unpack, and it's ironic that this happened last week after our clips of the week video, in which we showed two different plays that involved forward pitches such as this that resulted in missed calls. And what we're going to see on this one is we get two forward passes. And at the end of the play, we're going to have a defensive pass interference flag by the back judge. So if we go back to the beginning again, what we want to watch here is, again, we have a player that goes in motion. And this player ultimately receives a little shovel pass, and that is a forward pass. And we can see here that our head linesman is clearly punching forward, indicating that they have a forward pass caught behind the line of scrimmage. We then have a backwards pass by that player to the quarterback, who subsequently throws a second pass. Now, on film, we don't see necessarily a flag coming out, and we want to also look at one more thing. Now, with our mechanics, we ask that the wings hold the line of scrimmage, and our head linesman does that for the most part. But we'll notice here is that our line judge is, number one, they've been looking at the quarterback the whole time, but they're also now drifted downfield quite a bit. And they could have helped with this as well and had a flag near the spot of the foul at the 45. But as we let this play on, we're going to notice a couple things. So again, we have a pass interference flag thrown by the defense. And we also have the coach of the defensive team all the way out to the numbers. So let's unpack that all. So first off, we have an illegal forward pass for this second pass. And this is a spot foul, and our flag should be at around the 45-yard line. Then we have defensive pass interference. And I will say the crew does come together on this. They piece all of this together, and they realize they have an illegal forward pass, and there's a late flag. And we can see the line judge is going to come back towards the referee here. The crew does eventually wave off the defensive pass interference flag, because you cannot have DPI on an illegal forward pass. But let's also here watch the action by the coach. This is completely unacceptable. If the crew had decided to throw a flag for an unsportsmanlike, it would be warranted. No coaches are allowed on the field to argue like this. It's one thing to maybe come out a step, which is not allowed, but to come all the way out to the numbers and past the 25 should warrant an automatic flag for an unsportsmanlike. Now, again, the crew did the right thing on this. They got together. They enforced this from around the 42 instead of the 45, but they got everything right, and they did include the loss of down provision of the penalty. So we thank you for this crew sending it in. It's a very interesting play to look at and lots to unpack. We now want to look at a few plays that involve some calls by back judges, and also goes to some of our penalty enforcement. So on this first one here, we're just going to let this play, and then we'll go back and look at it again from the beginning. And just ask yourself if you have anything on this play. Now, we obviously get a flag here from our line judge. And if we go back and look at this again, it's going to look like there's a face mask. But if we slow it down, it does appear that perhaps the tackle is on the shoulder pad and then the player gets spun around. And if we pause it at the end here, we see the line judge come running in, and then we also see our back judge coming in with information. So I spoke to the crew on this, and the back judge felt they had a pretty clear look at this, and this was not a face mask. They felt that the tackle was on the shoulder pad and simply the momentum spun him around, which made it look like a face mask. Now, the line judge was adamant that there was a face mask, and ultimately that's what the crew went with. But I thought this was just a good play to show that the crew did have communication. The back judge did come in and offer information. Ultimately, the crew went with the line judge's call, but the back judge did feel confident and comfortable coming in and providing their opinion on the play. So on this play, we want to watch the back judge and the action that's kind of away from the play. And we're going to see two players get into a bit of a tussle, and the player in black swings and misses. And we get a flag right at the end by the back judge. So if we watch this again, we're going to see that they're engaged, and then there is a swing, and the player on defense misses the player on offense. And we do get a call here from the back judge. Now, I don't have the next clip, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure exactly what the back judge called, whether they called a personal foul or unsportsmanlike. So as a reminder, unsportsmanlike involved non-contact fouls, and personal fouls would obviously involve contact. However, the player that swung and missed was involved in the next play. And that's the key here. It does not require contact for this to be considered fighting. By definition, under Rule 211, whether or not there is contact, this is considered fighting. This player should have been ejected, and this penalty would result in disqualification from the contest. So just a reminder that if we see action like this and we see a player swing, it does not matter whether or not they make contact with their opponent for this to be considered fighting, and resulting in a disqualification. So I thought this call by the back judge on this game was excellent. I was actually observing this game, and I was on the sideline and saw this and thought it was a really excellent call. And with our mechanics, where crews are using the umpire in the offensive backfield, what we call the center judge, back judges are responsible for second level blocking. And what to watch is the action by the linebacker for the defense on the left guard who releases downfield. They pull and they come down, and you can see where the defender goes low. And this is an illegal block below the waist. Now, what was kind of funny about this is some fans that were next to us were saying you can't have illegal blocking below the waist by the defense, but as we all know, you can. So this was a great pickup here by the back judge. This is an extremely dangerous play for that lineman, and that defender, obviously undersized compared to that lineman, saw another course of action, but this is an illegal block below the waist, and we get a flag from our back judge. An excellent call. Speaking of illegal blocks below the waist by the defense, we get an excellent pickup here by our referee. They're following the play, they're keeping an eye on things, and they notice this illegal block below the waist by the defense. So if we watch this again, this player should be the focus of the line judge. At this point in time, the line judge does not have runner responsibility, so they should be looking at blocks in front of the runner. And this happens right on the same line that the line judge is on. But our referee does a good job looking through the runner and catches this illegal block below the waist by the defense. So excellent job here by the referee. And just a reminder again that we can have blocks below the waist by the defense. So unfortunately, this clip doesn't have any audio, but we've shown similar clips this year, and just want to remind everyone about what happens if a scrimmage kick goes beyond the line of scrimmage and bounces back. And what we're going to notice here is the ball does go beyond, but then bounces back behind the line of scrimmage. And we don't know when the whistle was blown. The kicker obviously gives themselves up, so we don't want them to get blown up. But when the kicker picks up the ball at this point in time, the ball is still alive. They could run with it, they could pass it, they could kick it again. This is why we ask the weans to not leave the line of scrimmage. In this case, they're having to work back to get there. But just a reminder, this ball is live and we should not be blowing it dead. Now, again, I don't know how much time elapsed, but this is a live ball. Now, again, we don't want that kid to get blown up. So if they've given themselves up and don't realize that the ball is live, let's go ahead and kill it and make sure they don't get tackled. But let's be aware that this was a live ball. All right, our final 3 clips for this year, and this is all from one series of plays, and it's an interesting one. So first off, we have 4th down and about 4 from the B14. And we're going to notice the quarterback rolls right, and they pass out to the left. And we're going to notice here, we have a clear punch forward by the head linesman. Now, let's go back and look at this play again and see where that receiver came from. Let's watch the left tackle. So this is probably designed to go backwards, but our head linesman has this as a forward pass, and it clearly does look like a forward pass. So now we should have a flag for illegal touching, which, as we've learned, is a loss of down penalty and enforced from the previous spot. And as you can see at the bottom right of our screen, we see the coach for the defensive team not very happy, throwing their headset to the ground, leaving the box, and coming out onto the field. So much like the first play we looked at, this could be an unsportsmanlike. Now, this was 4th down. The penalty would include loss of down. So if the crew were to enforce that and then the unsportsmanlike, it would still be the defensive ball. But let's see what actually happened. So the crew ruled this a touchdown. And so right before the snap, we're going to get a flag from one of the officials under the upright who has the snapper with an equipment violation for not wearing their mouthpiece. So now let's watch what happens next. So this is actually a 6-minute clip in Huddle, and I won't subject you to all 6 minutes, but we can see the coach for the defensive team out on the field. He's been questioning with the line judge about this, and now the crew gets together to start talking about the prior play. And you can see here later in the clip, the referee is speaking to the coach from the defensive team, and they're trying to piecemeal all of this together, obviously. Eventually, the crew understands their mistake, and they're going to go and talk to the coaches about this and realize that they should have had a penalty, but now the chains have been reset or actually laid down. And so they're unsure as to what the previous down and distance was and where the chains were. And what you're going to see is that the line judge is going to a team attendant on the sideline to look at a tablet. So let's be clear. We cannot look at video. Coaches should never offer for us to look at video. But in this case, they were looking at a still from Huddle, we presume, to show where the chains were. Now, this should be a last resort, of course, but we don't always have statisticians on the field to help us understand where the chains were or what the down and distance was. Now, again, this should be a last resort. If we were going to do this, we would want to make sure that we're going to the other coach and explaining exactly the rationale and reason for this. So again, we're not asking for you to do this a lot. Certainly no video, but a still would be okay. So again, the crew did not look a replay of this. They just rather reviewed a freeze frame prior to the snap to see where the chains were. So eventually they come to enforce the penalty. However, in the midst of all of this, they ruled this an ineligible player downfield. And again, that's not the right call. This is illegal touching. The player was not downfield because this pass was caught behind the line of scrimmage. As we may recall, our head linesman punched forward. So an ineligible downfield does not carry the penalty of a loss of down. This should be the defense's ball at this point in time. The offense was allowed to run another play and they did not score. And ultimately the defense did get the ball back, but just a very interesting set of circumstances, and one that I thought was very interesting to look at as our final clip of the year. Well, that is it for this week's and this year's clips of the week. I have a number of thank yous I'd like to give, and it's always a risk doing so because I know I will forget some people. First off, I'd like to thank Oregon SRI Kevin Hatfield for being my partner in this and putting these together. We're obviously not perfect and we made more mistakes than we wanted to, but I appreciate Kevin's help in putting these plays lists together and vetting all of the rules that we have. Special thanks to Chris Kendall and Matt Rosenberg of the Portland Football Officials Association, who do all of the hard work to put all the videos and graphics and audio together. These plays and clips of the week would not be anywhere close to what they are without the help of these two gentlemen. Thank you to Chris Welch from the OSAA for sending these clips out every week to officials and coaches throughout the state. Thank you to all of the officials throughout the state who sent in plays and have had discussions. I've made many friends all across the state through the process of compiling clips. Thank you to all the coaches for not only sending in film, but sending in clips for us to review. We're all in this together. We're all here to serve the kids. We want to make sure that we're all getting better and being on the same page and working towards our goal of one rule, one mechanic, and one interpretation. So with that said, best of luck to the teams in the finals and to the officials working those games. We hope everyone has a great off season, and we'll be back before you know it with another edition of Clips of the Week. Until then, take care.